educating their competitors on how to bury them. During my time here, however long that will be, I hope to take steps to change this situation and to help restore and protect Australia's industry to the best of my abilities and for the betterment of Australian families and workers. I also hope to raise the awareness of federal politicians of the daily pressures facing the Australian worker and farmer. Accordingly, I will be moving to establish a parliamentary program. Just as the members and senators of the Australian Parliament can and should show support for the Australian Defence Forces by taking part in the ADF parliamentary program, I believe an Australian manufacturing and farming sector parliamentary program should be established. Such a program would help senators and members gain a better appreciation for the men and women whose hard work keeps this nation alive. Surely a hands-on approach to the working conditions of the average Australian would benefit us all when debating relevant legislation. Finally, I would like to address something particularly close to the DLP and its members. 37 years ago, the last DLP senators left the Senate. McManus, Little, Kane, Byrne and Gare, names that were once spoken of either with admiration or derision in households across this nation. They were the last of their kind, the last of an era, and their passing was not mourned by parties present here today. Two visionaries, John Curtin, who hailed from my wife's birthplace of Creswick, and Ben Chifley, a Bathurst boy and a railwayman, had proclaimed the principles of the Labor movement only a few years prior to the split. Less than a decade had passed since a Labor government had saved this nation from invasion during the Second World War, and now the same party was prepared to sacrifice that hard-won future to an ideology with an agenda of social engineering and an upheaval as destructive as any invading army. 51 members of Parliament, including 14 ministers and a state premier, stood fast for the Labor principles they swore to uphold, and for this they were expelled, abandoned and left to carry on the fight for the sake of the Australian people, and ironically to defend the principles of the Australian Labor Party. For most of the next 20 years, the DLP held the balance of power and played a major role in determining who would govern this country. Were we always right in the decisions we made? No. We made mistakes too. Over the last couple of years, the Liberal Party has made a number of references to their apparent Labor credentials. We've heard that the principles of the DLP are alive and well in the Liberal Party, and even more recently that if Ben Chifley were alive today, he'd vote Liberal. Well, I can assure you that the DLP and its principles are alive and well in the DLP. I can also assure you that the great Ben Chifley, a former Prime Minister of the Labor movement that I support, would have resigned his office rather than vote Liberal. The Libs seem to forget that another great Prime Minister and the father of their party, Sir Robert Menzies, was so discouraged with the direction of the Liberal Party had taken after his departure that, as confirmed by his family, rather than vote Liberal, he voted for the Democratic Labor Party. So instead of Chifley voting for the Liberals, it's Menzies who showed the way by voting for a Labor Party. Most of you have heard or read the following words at some time in your life. They speak to those who genuinely believe in a role that a Labor Party has in the future of this country and the lives of its people. I try to think of the Labor movement not as putting an extra sixpence into somebody's pocket or making somebody Prime Minister or Premier, but as a movement bringing something better to the people. Better standards of living, greater happiness to the mass of the people. We have a great objective, the light on the hill, which we aim to reach by working for the betterment of mankind, not only here, but anywhere we may give a helping hand. If it were not for that, the Labor movement would not be worth fighting for. This excerpt from Ben Chifley's Light on the Hill speech to an ALP conference, a united ALP, in 1949 defines the Labor movement then, now and hereafter. 62 years later, we who call ourselves Labor are again called upon to fulfil that movement. Are we bringing something better to the people? Or are we just about putting an extra sixpence in our pockets? Are we providing better standards of living? Or are we just about making someone Prime Minister at any cost? Are we spreading greater happiness to the people? Or is a helping hand too much to pay for the betterment of mankind? And if we cannot answer these questions as honestly as Chifley asked them, is the continuation of this Labor movement worth fighting for? The DLP and the ALP are not the same. We differ in a number of ways, but we both came from the same lineage. And however some members on both sides may dislike it, we are kin of sorts. Frank McManus, a true and loyal Labor senator, remarked, "I have often said that the best government for Australia is a good Labor government, and the worst is a bad Labor government. This nation needs, wants and hopes for a good Labor government that will bring something better to the people, that works for the betterment of our people. The Labor movement is still waiting to be fulfilled. The ALP has a chance to reaffirm its commitment to that unchanging Labor movement. The DLP intends to pursue that vision. It would be good to do so with King. And may we all remember that it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to put the common good back into the Commonwealth."
Top speech. Good on you, mate. Well done. Up on the side and let the move. Well done, well done. Lots of good food for thought and ache.
Congratulations.
Well done, John. John, it's so good to see a person with a fine sense of history. Well done.
And I didn't know on election.
John, well done. You're right spoken.
You got Kim in more places than I John, I learned a lot.
Well done, John.
Good on you, mate. It's good to get out of the way.
Congratulations, John.
Well done, John. You gave us all the shot across the bows. That was great.
I thought that was very powerful. I really appreciate it. Hey, John, well done, mate. Good on you. Good on you.
Nice speech. Thanks, John. Congratulations. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
It's very good.
Well done, John. A very spirited defence.
Really enjoyed that, but take mercy on us, practical blokes.
Well done, John. It's good to have it all behind us.
Another saying, John, the last shall be first, so I've got to congratulate you as you were the last shall be first.
He missed the Queen, so never said a word.